right. Now, Senator Paterson, kick off for today.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, I haven't yet got your opening statement and I would like to ask some questions about it. Do you know if that's been circulated yet to the committee?
No, I don't know that.
It hasn't been? No. Is it going to be?
Sure. I think I made some changes as I spoke, so...
Oh, right, okay. I look forward to being able to ask some detailed questions about some of the things you said in your opening statement, but just at a high level, I haven't attended every single Senate estimate since you were Foreign Minister, but I've attended a fair few, and I don't recall an opening statement as partisan as that one, nor do I recall any of your predecessors in this forum making such a partisan opening statement. Is there a reason why you felt the need to make such a strong statement this morning?
Well, I don't accept the premise of your question.
Well, have you ever opened Senate estimates by making multiple references to the Leader of the Opposition by name before?
Well, I think when... well, first, I don't accept the premise of your opening question. I think it is a reasonable thing to respond to some of the bellicose rhetoric, which I don't think is in Australia's interest.
Can you recall a time where your predecessor would have used this forum for such a partisan statement?
I've seen a lot of partisanship in this forum, Senator, including yesterday from you.
Okay. You don't think it was reasonable to ask questions about what we knew and when we knew it about the People's Liberation Army Navy Task Force?
I think it is reasonable to ask those questions. I think gunboat diplomacy is a return to the drums of war rhetoric. And I don't think it is reasonable for the Leader of the Opposition to tell people in Menzies and Bennelong he's pro-China. I don't think it's reasonable for Mr Woolahan to tell people how you've changed your position and then engage in that sort of rhetoric in Canberra. And I think that should be pointed to. You can explain it.
It comes across, I mean, I know the media was bad this morning for the government. I know a range of commentators are very critical, but it comes across as very defensive. And I know an election's around the corner, but I just can't recall a Foreign Minister feeling the need to weigh in so strongly before.
Senator, they're your words.
Okay. I will have specific questions about the statement when it is circulated, but turning to the People's Liberation Army Navy Task Force, do you have an update on its whereabouts today?
That's a matter for Defence.
We asked Defence yesterday and they said that they were briefing DFAT so that DFAT could brief you so that you were on top of it. Have you received an update from the department?
Those are operational matters for Defence, and if you want an update from Defence, I would refer you to the Deputy Prime Minister's office.
I don't have the same opportunities to ask questions of him, as you know.
Well, Senator, I don't know whether the opposition... I know that Mr Dutton was quite late to ask for a briefing on this. I don't know if you've sought a further briefing. I'm sure that if you seek a further briefing, we will provide one.
It's funny you should say that. We did ask for briefings and we had some difficulty scheduling them. I'm not sure if it was the availability of officials or some other reason. And just on that...
If I could just also say, my recollection is, and I'll check with the Defence portfolio, that there are regular statements updating in relation to this. Ms Lawson might be able to assist, or Ms Deserton.
Thank you, Senator. Ellie Lawson, Deputy Secretary, Geostrategic and Planning Group. The Department of Defence is making regular updates on their website.
Yes. Will there be an update today?
Did you not check this morning? If you were very keen. I think it went live at 8:30.
Okay, well then you should be able to answer the question.
No, it's a Defence statement, sir.
Right, so it's not in your state of knowledge?
It's a Defence statement.
Yeah, and we've been told by Defence you've been regularly briefed. If you're not aware, you can say so.
No. I refer you to the statement, which is very transparent and professional.
Is it in the state of knowledge of any officials here today?
Is what? In their state of knowledge of any officials?
The whereabouts, the current whereabouts of the People's Liberation Army Navy Task Force.
Senator, I would refer you to the update on the website of the Department of Defence.
Thank you. So is that a no? That's not in the state of knowledge of any officials?
Senator Sarah Deserton, First Assistant Secretary, Defence and National Security Policy Division. The Department of Defence issued a statement at 8:30 a.m, as the Minister referenced. It indicated that the task group was 548 kilometres west of Hobart.
Thank you. I'm grateful for that update. Foreign Minister, when were you first informed about the live firing exercise conducted by the PLAN?
As you will, or you may recall, I was in South Africa at the time.
Yes.
So the initial advice to government would have occurred very early morning, I think 4 a.m. or sometime like that, or maybe earlier, South African time. So I was advised after I got up and I was briefed, and I also had a conversation with the Prime Minister in which we agreed that I would raise the issue directly with Wang Yi, Prime Minister Wang Yi, with whom I had a bilateral later that day.
Okay, so you were advised by your own department, presumably?
That's right. Possibly through the office as well as the department.
Does anyone from the department have the Australian time that the Foreign Minister would have been notified?
Senator, there were the department was advised by the Department of Defence at around 12:30 Australia time on the Friday. We also understand the Foreign Minister's office received a communication a bit earlier than that from her office. That was at around 2:51 a.m. Johannesburg time.
And just because I can't do the maths in my head while I'm here, what was it Australian time that the Foreign Minister's office was notified?
We understand it was around 11:50 a.m.
11:50. So it was also after the Infrastructure Minister was notified at 11:20?
It's not the Infrastructure Minister, Transport is the key portfolio there.
Well, yes, she's also the Transport Minister.
No, but that I'm just making sure she's not. Minister King is not notified because she's the Infrastructure Minister. She's notified because she has responsibility for air services.
I'm pretty sure the department is called the Department of Infrastructure, but anyway. So how is it that the Infrastructure and Minister for Transport is informed half an hour before the Foreign Minister office is about a live firing exercise by the People Liberation Army Navy in the Tasman Sea?
Well, Senator, you went through this in detail yesterday, including the way in which the two channels of notification occurred. So I don't think I've got anything to add to the evidence from yesterday.
Well, except that, as you pointed out, those are questions to the Department of Defence. These are the questions to you, and when you were informed or when your office was informed. Now, I understand if you're in a different time zone, you might not have been able to be woken up in the middle of the night. I'm not suggesting that, but your office should have been notified promptly. Why was it after the Minister for Infrastructure and Transport?
Well, I'd refer you to the evidence yesterday.
Right. Do you think it's a problem that domestic non-security ministers are finding out about serious security incidents in the region before senior national security ministers in their offices?
I'd refer you to the evidence yesterday.
That's not an answer.
Well, it is, actually. It may not be the answer you like, Senator Paterson, but it is the answer I'm giving. That the important point, though, is I was able to put our views directly to a senior member of the Chinese government within 24 hours.
I look forward to canvassing that with you in a moment, but I think the notification issue is an important one. Has there been any reflection in government about the delayed notification to senior national security ministers such as yourselves about a senior national security incident, a serious national security incident?
I'm not sure what your question is seeking to elicit.
I'll rephrase it then. Don't you think it is a problem that it took so long to inform ministers about a serious incident, and that ministers who do not have national security responsibilities found out about a national security incident prior to ministers such as yourself and the Defence Minister?
Well, I think the evidence yesterday traversed in detail the two mechanisms or the two channels by which notification was provided.
Yes, and that's not what the question was. The question is whether you think it's a problem or not.
Well, I think the evidence yesterday, you asked precisely those questions and the CDF responded to you.
Yes, and now I'm asking you for your view.
And, you know, I take it, unlike those who wish to be highly critical of the Australian Defence Force in pursuit of this political objective, I take advice from national security agencies, including Defence.
Yes, well, that's interesting, but I'm not asking for their advice. I'm asking for your view. You're the Foreign Minister. You don't have a view on this?
I have many views, Senator Paterson. Most of them you don't agree with.
Please share them. This is your opportunity.
Yeah, I think you are engaging in politicisation of this event for your own political purposes. And I think people can see that.
I think people can see, and I think fair observers have pointed out, no friends of the coalition, that this has been shambolic handling of this issue over the last couple of days. Utterly shambolic. And worthy of legitimate scrutiny in a forum like Senate estimates.
Do you have a question?
I have many. I still don't have the benefit of your statement, so I'm going to have to rely on the rough notes that I took. So forgive me if they're not completely accurate, and please correct me if they're not. In talking about those two pathways of notification via a commercial airliner and the Defence Forces, I think you said it was some time later that notification came through from Defence channels. Is that accurate?
I think that was the evidence yesterday.
Yes, but I'm asking about what you said in your statement before I ask a question about it. I don't want to be accused of misquoting you.
Yes.
Okay. The Prime Minister said yesterday at his press conference that it was around the same time that notification came through from the Virgin Australia pilot and the Defence Force, but you've described it as some time later. What's the reason for the discrepancy between the Prime Minister's description and yours?
I don't accept there's a discrepancy.
Do you think that around the same time and some time later are
Senator,
the same?
The time frame is clear from the evidence yesterday. We've been transparent about that.
I think you've been transparent today, as Defence was yesterday, but I don't think that's a fair description of what the Prime Minister has said, because he said yesterday at his press conference that it was around the same time that notification came through the two channels. That's not true, and that's probably why you said on Hansard, quote, some time later. Why is there a discrepancy between the two of you?
Well, I don't accept that is the case, Senator.
You don't think...
And I just would also make the point, if you were so interested in this issue, why did it take the Leader of the Opposition some 4 days after the incident before he sought a briefing?
Why was a briefing proactively offered to the media on Friday, but not the Opposition?
I'm not sure that's the case.
It is the case.
Well, hang on. You want transparency. The Deputy Prime Minister has been very transparent about this. He provided... there was a public statement issued, was it last week? I'm sorry, it wasn't my statement, but certainly before this occurred about the task group, and an interview, and defence statements as required. I don't know how regular. So are you complaining about transparency?
No, well, you made an observation about opposition briefings, and I'm responding by observing...
Well, I just think it says something about how
Minister,
interested you are in this.
I hadn't finished, Minister.
How interested you are in this, that your leader took 4 days to even ask for a briefing on this, to even ask.
Well,
now, you know, if this is such a big issue for you, surely you would have been pretty quick to request a briefing from the government, but you weren't.
Minister, I'll do my best today not to interrupt you, and I ask that you do the same.
Okay. You're not going to be Senator McGrath.
We could all play that game. I won't run through a list of your colleagues and reflect on
games
their
today, please.
conduct.
No games today.
We just had a very
come on.
interrupting Prime Minister and Cabinet.
Let's get back to questions and answers.
So, I mean, we can have the fight about briefings all day, probably not too productive. So, you don't accept that your description of the two pathways of reporting as being some time later and the Prime Minister's description of being around the same time are in any way distinct?
I mean, this is really, when you're talking about a difference from memory of less than an hour, From memory, is that what the defence evidence said? From memory, it was 50 minutes?
I think it was 63 minutes
I think it was
between
50.
the Virgin notification and the New Zealand Defence Force
No.
notification.
But the relevant point is their services. I think it's about 50 minutes. So you're talking less than an hour. Now, if you want to focus your attention on words used to describe less than an hour, that's a matter for you.
Okay. You also said, and I believe this is accurate, but again, I don't have your transcript, so you correct me if I'm wrong. We were not provided advance notice about the exercise. Is that right?
Senator Ellie Lawson, Deputy Secretary, Strategic Planning Coordination Group. The Department of Defence did respond to that question yesterday.
My question is not about the notice. My question is about the Foreign Minister's opening statement. I think it might have been now circulated, so I'll try and read it while I'm asking questions, but I might need to come back to it. But I think, Foreign Minister, you said in your opening statement that, quote, we were not provided advance notice. Is that what you said in your opening statement?
And what I have indicated publicly, and I think was consistent with Defence yesterday, is that the Australian Defence Force in similar circumstances, and we do operate in similar circumstances, in general would provide 12 to 24 hours advance notice.
Yes, just at the moment trying to seek the confirmation of what you said in your opening statement, and I now have it in front of me, and it says, and I quote, seeking an explanation for why we were not provided advance notice. Why are you observing that we were not given advance notice when the Prime Minister has repeatedly said that notice was given?
Well, notice was given. That I was referencing the practice of the Australian Defence Force, which form part of my representations to the Foreign Minister.
Yes, but it's not notice if it comes after the event has commenced,
Senator,
is it?
We all know what you're trying to do. I put, on behalf of the country, to the Chinese Foreign Minister that in usual we would expect I'm sorry, 24 to 48 hours advance notice. That is usually what Australians would engage in. So I'll correct my evidence from before. 24 to 48, and that's what I'm referencing in the opening statement.
What I'm trying to do is ask you questions.
So what you're trying to do is to create more politics around this, Senator. Let's be clear.
Chair, I'm trying to be respectful to the Foreign Minister by not interrupting her during her answers. I'd ask that you enforce the same when I'm asking questions. Foreign Minister, what I'm trying to do is to get you to answer questions about your own opening statements, which you delivered half an hour ago, and you seem reluctant to do that. You have said we were not provided advance notice. The Prime Minister has said in a range of media interviews and press conferences, including on Q&A on Monday night, that we were given notice of the upcoming exercises. Why is there a discrepancy between what you have said about this and what the Prime Minister has said about this?
Senator, I know you are desperate to try and find a new angle. I'm consistent. The advance notice to which I'm referencing there is the advance notice that I spoke to Foreign Minister Wong Yi about and that the Australian Defence Force would generally provide in similar circumstances.
I agree, Foreign Minister, you have been consistent in your own words, but your own words are not consistent with what the Prime Minister has
Senator,
said.
They're your
Chair, again, I'm
sorry,
just
I thought you'd
questions.
finished. I thought you'd
I
finished. No, that's fine.
I was pausing for breath. I agree, you have been consistent in your own language, but your language has not been consistent with what the Prime Minister said, and it is in the national interest to understand why there is a discrepancy on a serious matter of national security and public statements made by the Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister. So can you account for the difference between the Prime Minister's statements on many occasions saying that notice was given and your statement that we were not provided advance notice?
Well, Senator, both statements are correct.
So we were provided advance notice?
Senator, both statements are correct.
they're in contradiction with each other.
No, Senator, I've explained to you what I meant. You don't want to listen to it. That's a choice you want to make. I've explained to you what I was referencing by advance notice, which is what I spoke to the Foreign Minister of China about.
I'm actually listening very carefully to your answers. It's the fact that they're unresponsive to the questions that I'm asking, which is why I need to keep repeating them and seeking clarity. It is not the same thing to say we received notice and there was no advance notice provided, which is what you have said, compared to what the Prime Minister has said. Is it because the Prime Minister is not across the detail?
Oh, now we've come to the point of the questioning, haven't we? To try and land the political grab in estimates. You're not actually interested in the detail. If you were interested in how we are working to keep Australians safe, you would have asked for a briefing less than 4 days after the incident happened. Right? But you're only interested in trying to invest in a political attack. And everyone can see that, Senator Paterson. Everyone can see that.
Foreign Minister, I won't be taking lectures from you on politicisation, given that you made an opening statement that is the most partisan in memory in Senate estimates and repeatedly attacked the Leader of the Opposition by name multiple times. And by my search, you mentioned him 3 times in your opening statement along with others. It is in the public interest to understand why the Prime Minister has inaccurately, repeatedly described the behaviour of a People's Liberation Army Navy task group in our region.
Senator, I think the facts demonstrate China did give notice. It was not in accordance with best practice and it wasn't given directly to Australia or New Zealand. And the fact that it did not do so to New Zealand, Australia or in advance was something I raised with Foreign Minister Wong Yi. So it is correct that China gave notice. We have issues with the timeframe around that and the channel, and we have expressed that to them.
How did they give notice if we only learned of the exercises after they had commenced?
Senator, I believe Defence covered this in their committee hearing yesterday. My understanding is that there was notice given, but it was not through the best practice channels that are normally used. It was not a formal notice to mariners, and so it was not given directly to Australia or New Zealand.
I think the plain language understanding of giving notice is telling someone about something before it happens, not after it started. How is it giving notice if we only find out about it after it started?
And Senator, that is why we have raised this directly with the Chinese government, because in our view, this was not best practice, and so it caused disruption. And so our expectation is that these kinds of exercises are formally notified in accordance with international best practice.
Last minute, Senator Paterson.
Thank you. Just final question on this for now.
Okay.
Prime Minister, will the Prime Minister apologise today for misleading the Australian people about this serious matter of national security?
Well, that is not what has occurred.